how are we starting the show off today?
Oh, I'm so excited for our first guest. Thank you, Karthik, for asking. It's going to be a great one. Our very first segment here on Beyond the Bots for the evening is with the United States Air Force. We've got Master Sergeant Christopher Miller. Master Sergeant Miller, thank you so much for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about your role with the United States Air Force to get us started?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this. A little bit about myself. My name's Christopher Miller. I've been in the Air Force about 14 years, and currently I'm filling the role of Superintendent of Operations Support. And right now I'm really diving into the technologies section. So that's really what my focus is right now, is trying to incorporate all the technology we have on the outside and utilize it for military, for strategic vision, and for just to make ease of life a little bit easier for us.
That's fantastic. And since you're here for National Robotics Week, I know we're going to dive into some really fun technology. We wanted to discuss some of the ways that the Air Force has been using robotics. So, can you tell us? I'm really excited for this one. Can you tell us about the new semi autonomous robot dog on duty at your base? I'm pretty sure our audience would love to hear some details.
I
Yeah,
want to hear
absolutely.
these details. I'm pumped for this. Robot dog, like this is what it's about.
Yeah, robot dogs are all the rage right now. So for us, we decided we needed to take a look at a lot of things that we were doing and figure out how to do it better, how to do it easier. And we decided to partner with a company called Ghost Robotics, and they're actually partnered with another company, Immersive Wisdom. And with that company, they produced a phenomenal product. It's a semi-autonomous dog with a virtual reality headset platform that you could actually drive the dog. How we're utilizing it is we're using it as an additional, pretty much like a, think about it as a base defense Roomba. Everyone has Roombas at their house. They go around, they clean everything up. That's what we're using these dogs for. They're additional sensor plat that we can use on multiple areas of our base. Um, I'm seeing some clips right now. This is just some of the footage that we have. These things are wild. We're able to drive them with the program made by Immersive Wisdom, and we're also able to drive these with a controller. With just a normal Android controller, we can walk it around, we can do demonstrations, and I can actually physically make this do whatever I want it to.
So taking a look at this robot, and as we're seeing it kind of, move around, our community's so used to wheeled robots. That's just kind of the thing that they're used to. Robots that drive around kind of like cars and that sort of deal. But you're dealing with a walking robot. So how does this, beautiful robotic dog handle the different sorts of terrains that they see on the base?
That's a great question because our base is so we're located in Tyndall Air Force Base in Panama City, Florida. So we have sand, we have swamp, we have mud, we have forest, we have literally everything you could have. So these companies have actually geared up with a lot of different companies to try to figure out exactly what the best kind of shoe, essentially. We're putting shoes on the dogs to make sure that they're not slipping through the mud. They're able to not get stuck. They're able to traverse the terrain as well as they can. One of the cool things with these is these things are crazy. They go about 4.5 miles an hour. They can walk up about a 45-degree incline. They can operate between negative 40 degrees all the way up to 140 degrees. So they're very versatile. Right now, we're the first in the United States Air Force and the DoD that's actually using these, and there's other test bases that are going to try to use it in different kind of climates.
Well, oh, that's amazing, the resiliency to adapt to these different sorts of climates. And so you said, I want to hear more about these shoes because you said that you've tried on different. Now, is this a matter of you're testing to find the one optimal one, or do you put on different shoes depending on the conditions, like the weather, or if it's rainy or something like that?
So that's something the company Ghost Robotics is actually working on. They're just trying to figure
Okay.
out for longevity what shoe is going to last the longest, what compound, what type of plastics, what type of rubbers. They've actually, without saying the name, they've actually partnered with some actually shoe companies like to make the rubber for the shoes. So something that we all wear every day, and they're just trying to get the compounds right for our terrain. These applications may change. What works at Tyndall Air Force Base may not work at a different Air Force Base. We just don't know yet, and that's what we're excited to figure out over the next year or so.
Well,
I
that's
think that's
really
so.
cool. Yeah, please, Libby, please.
I was gonna say, well, first, of course, you're excited about the shoes, Karthik. But I think one of the things that is so unique, the way you're describing it, we've got, of course, first students and mentors and alumni in our chat here. That's so similar to their process, right? No, it's not shoes. It's not, a walking dog, although maybe somebody will do it. But what's the right wheel for this? What's the right component for the surface? How often do I need to test it? And I love the idea of how collaborative this sounds, right? With just so many different companies and vendors and shoe companies working together. It really, it feels a lot like the experience some of our students have. I just think that's wonderful.
Yeah, Libby,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
totally sorry, please, Master Sergeant.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's been a very collaborative environment for all of us. So not only the vendor with Ghost Robotics, Immersive Wisdom, the Air Force, we've had a lot of help through every different variation of people within the Air Force. We have people from Hanscom Air Force Base helping us out with actually getting the equipment to us. We have our base civil engineers helping us out with making sure the dog houses are in the charging pads, have enough power. It's a team effort all across Team Tyndall over here and across the Team Air Force. So we're excited.
And as you should be, and I think as our entire audience is, because we're seeing a bunch of questions through in chat right now. And so one thing that I want to ask about, you talked a little bit about how you have the virtual reality headset and you also have an Android phone that we control it. Now, you control this specifically, right?
So when I'm doing demonstrations, when it's in front of me, I do have the ability to take control of it any time. How we're going to utilize it is utilizing the Immersive Wisdom software platform that's going to be located with our Base Defense Operations Center. So think about it like a dispatcher for 911. Someone's back there constantly. They're manning it. They're manning the phones. They're making sure we have our patrols exactly where we need them. So what they're going to do is if that robot goes out and its sensor gets triggered somehow, it's going to send back a notice to us. We're going to be able to take control of the dog, i.e., put on the virtual reality headset, and we can actually look around and make sure the dog sees what we're seeing, or we're seeing what the dog is seeing. And we can give verbal commands through it. So if you happen to come up, Libby, and I saw you on the camera, I could be like, "Hey, this is Security Forces installation. What are you doing here?" And that would be enough to hopefully stop you from what you're doing.
I don't want to get in
I,
trouble with the dog.
I would love to see Libby's reaction if a robotic dog came up to you and be like, "Excuse me, ma'am, what are you doing here?" So,
ma'am, what are you doing here?
ma'am,
I would just tell it how good of a boy it is. That's the problem. I'd be like, oh,
naturally,
hi.
All the belly rubs.
exactly.
That
Hey,
sounds really dangerous in this case.
hey, Libby, it looks like we've got some really good questions coming in from the chat. You want to take a look and see what our audience is saying right now?
Yeah, we've got a couple of good ones. Our first one is fairly simple. I think you covered this a little bit, but how are the robot dogs powered? What does that look like for them? Do they have a battery that they sit home and charge in? What does that look like for that process?
So they actually do have an internal battery. So off one battery life, the dog can last approximately 6 to 7 hours, depending on how far they're going. So if I just turn it on and let it sit here, it could stay on for about 6 to 7 hours. But when it's actually under some stress or some tension, if it's walking, it will travel about 5 to 7 miles, and then it'll have to come back and recharge. We have it set up to where it's going to have a wireless charging pad, which is what we're calling their dog houses. So these dog houses, the dog's going to be able to come back on its own. It's going to be able to dock itself, and it's going to be able to feed itself. And then once it's fed and it's able to continue, it'll go back out and it'll do another loop with surveillance.
I wish my dog fed himself and put himself to recharge. That would be pretty great. The question for chat that we have on this topic of their dog houses and do you guys name the dogs? They have is it Spot? Is it Fido? Or are they 1, 2, 3, and 4?
So right now they don't have names because we're going to actually make it a fun competition on Tyndall Air Force Base. So we're going to let our squadron, the Security Forces, the 325th Security Forces Squadron, we're going to let our personnel name one. We're going to let the management office name one, and then we're actually going to have a naming contest across the installation and let the rest of Team Tyndall kind of help us name them. So we'll let you know what those names are.
That's perfect. Karthik, what other questions do we have coming from the chat?
The one question, and it's a little bit interesting. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer it for us, but if you could, it'd be great. Do the dogs use any form of AI and learn as they go, or is they always being pre-programmed or controlled?
So they do have a level of AI to them. So, for instance, when we were mapping the area that they were actually going to be walking every day, like their patrol area, if you will. So while they're walking that, the more and more that dog is hand walked by a controller or by a person, the more it's going to understand the terrain it's traveling. So if it travels that route 3, 4 times and doesn't see a tree, and then the fifth time it comes up to it and it sees something in its way, it's going to stop and try to figure out exactly what it's looking at. So it may trigger back an alarm to us so we could clear it out and we can add it to what the database or the data mapping is. And then that way next time the dog knows how to go around it. So we don't have to keep going out there and moving things. We could go out there and clear the obstacle, but it does have built-in obstacle avoidance.
Very
That's
cool.
pretty yeah, it's just kind of cool to see this technology, how it evolves, it's learning and it's continually improving. It's that same sort of iterative process that the teams go through with robots. So it's nice.
Super fascinating. Some of our questions from chat are also, how did you get to become the dog handler, and what kind of skills are involved in operating the dogs?
So I actually got put into this position. They just needed to fill the superintendent role in the technology and logistics and some of the stuff in my background. I'm familiar with a lot of camera systems and things of that nature. So this kind of just got sprung on me, but it's definitely been a learning curve. I've had to figure out a lot of things that I honestly have never been into robotics. I've just never had that opportunity. But now seeing this stuff real world operational, it's pretty cool to understand that instead of leveraging a human or putting out one of us, we can actually utilize technology and make our lives easier, and then utilize us for what we're good at. We're good at interacting with the public, especially if we're conducting law enforcement operations. It's a lot more intimidating for a robot dog to go try to talk to somebody than it is for a human. So we're trying to leave the technology to cover our gaps and help leverage the humans to be able to do what we're good at.
One question from the chat is about the repairability of these dogs. Are they, if something goes wrong, is it a simple sort of fix where you're just fixing one single component, or is it like you have to open it up and make some sort of big changes?
Oh boy, I hope not. But honestly, the dog is pretty simple. It's got 5 components. It's got the main motherboard component, so the body, and it's got the 4 legs. With that being said, the legs are able to be changed out in about 3 to 5 minutes with minimal training. I learned how to do it very quickly, so that part is pretty easy. If there's a motherboard issue, we're going to have to send it back to the company. They'll send us back a new part, or they'll fix whatever they need to, and they'll send it back to us. But for the legs, we could have 2 or 3 spare legs on hand, and I could change those out within minutes with minimal tools in the field.
Wow, that is very, very impressive. Our teams will relate to that one because they always design their robots as they need to be able to fix them in 6 minutes. That's the distance between 2 matches. So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, for sure. I can tell the question about repairability was asked by first alum, because it's always about how quickly can we get this back together and how modular is it. This has been so awesome, Master Sergeant Miller. But as we kind of move to close up on our dogs, although I'd love to keep talking about these good boys, what do you think the future looks like for this technology? What other uses are they envisioned to have?
Oh, honestly, this platform is just getting started. There's so many other things that we can do with this. Right now, we're just using it for surveillance, but there's so many other gadgets you can link to these. So whether that be drones, whether that be radios, using these as mobile repeaters for cell phone towers, I think we could do all sorts of things with these. I'm very curious to see how they react in different climates, because I've only seen the climate here at Tyndall, but that'd be very interesting because it could save a lot of my fellow defenders out there. It could save us some cold trips in some of the northern tier bases. So it's definitely interesting to see what it could be used for. and not even just looking from a perspective of security forces, but we have explosive ordnance folks that use robots on a regular basis. We could actually use this technology to help them out, or they could use it, retrofit it with their own gadgets. So think of this as just a platform, and then we're putting applications on top of it. So it's honestly endless, and I'm very excited to see what happens in the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your insight time today, Master Sergeant Christopher Miller of the United States Air Force. We appreciate your time, and I can't wait to see them either. Even just watching the videos, I want to see one up close. They look super, super cool. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.